tuning in with KrASIA, bringing human stories to life.
Welcome to Tuning In with KrASIA. My name is Taro, and today I'll be speaking with Reggie Koh. Reggie is the founder and host of The Financial Coconut, Singapore's #1 personal finance podcast. He draws from his range of experiences from dropping out of school, recovering from a financial scam, starting various companies and startups, investing in the stock market, and follows his motto, living life to the fullest. So Reggie, thanks for joining this interview.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. For all our listeners, Reggie's what's known as a financial coconut.
Yeah, it's becoming a thing. It's like my name now, right? Nobody knows my name anymore. It's like, oh, that's the coconut guy, right? Yeah, it's a thing now. Yep. Cool.
And of course, you've got your own podcast. Perhaps just give a bit of an intro about your podcast.
The podcast is called The Financial Coconut. And when I started the podcast, nobody knew my name because I never said that, oh, I'm your host, Reggie. I just say, welcome back to another day with The Financial Coconut. Mm-hmm. Right? And then over time, people will be like, oh, yeah, you're the coconut guy, right? So nobody knows the name. And it started out as this thing that I did on my dining table. I was really bored. After a while, I tell people, good things are born out of boredom. But yeah, so at that point in time, I shifted to KL. I didn't have much to do. And I didn't really want to do much at that point in time. I just wanted to rest. But then I had this extra room, and then I had B&B guests, and every one of them was telling me like, hey, you're so young, why aren't you doing anything? So then I was like, okay, yeah, maybe let's do something. And I was really annoyed by the YouTube ads, all your success gurus. So I was like, dude, I'm going to tell you how I do it, right? It's not as if like I've done a great job, but I just wanted to share my thoughts, my perspectives. So then I picked up the mic, I recorded, I published it, and my God, in like 10 episodes, we had like thousands of followers. By the 20th episode, I think we had somewhere in the ballpark of 3,000 followers, and I was like, okay, now I cannot rant on this platform anymore. Things getting serious. People are listening, we got to be more responsible. But yeah, so I would tell people it's no longer as fun because back then it was just like, I could say whatever I want to say. Now these days we have to schedule, we have to plan a little bit, ask our audience what they're interested in, and things are a little bit more scheduled, but it's fun in its own way still. But yeah, currently we are the #1 financial literacy podcast in Singapore.
Fantastic. You've grown your podcast to become one of the most popular financial related podcasts in Singapore. And
the most popular. Yeah. Shameless.
Yeah, shameless, yeah. So you've mentioned that you've started from KL and back in the days when you want to have a bit of a break. So from that point into now, what are your inspirations to keep growing and keep driving this particular podcast?
Actually, as cheesy as it sounds, it's really the people. And I'm going to just be really real because we don't really make money out of this yet. We're trying to, and we're getting there. But the journey was really about me expressing myself and finding resonance. There are actually people that are interested to learn about this. And some of the audience, they talk to me on LinkedIn. They'll try to find me on Facebook. And it's just real nice because they tell you that, hey, it's really nice what you're doing. And then they have all these questions for you. And yeah, I just feel like I was connecting with people and I was just kind of helping them in some ways. Yeah, it's kind of where it went. And all these little connections of people telling you, hey, really good job, keep doing it. Really good job, keep doing it, was really important because I think a lot of people tried to do their own podcast and it didn't make it because not enough skill, not enough people like it, and of course they don't do it long enough, right? So now we have a team behind it, but for me at least, it's really about the people. They tell me all these stuff and gives me like a purpose, right? It's like, okay, cool stuff. Let's continue to solve all these people's questions and find all the people that they want to talk to, right? So that's kind of where it is.
So your podcast, obviously it goes over a lot of financial related topics that are very helpful for those that may not have that particular kind of knowledge. So it's really interesting. We live in an age now with the internet where information is so freely available everywhere, yet many people still don't have the knowledge and still make misinformed decisions. Why do you think this is?
So a few things, right? I think what I've observed after doing a year of podcasting with the audience, I realized that generally there are 3 kinds of people in the personal finance space that really needs help. So the first kind of people are those that, what I call the financially less literate. They don't really know much about personal finance because people don't talk about it at home, people don't talk about it in school, and they don't know enough, right? So these guys, they learn, they take some time, and you really got to pick it up. And there's just so many components that it takes time. So along the way, you still make mistakes, but at least you're learning, right? So actually, these guys are the easiest to solve. They just need to learn, and you dust them off, and shoo, carry on they go, right? They can go and live their own life and do whatever they want to do. But there are two other groups of people that I think struggle. Even if they learn about personal finance, they will still continue to struggle. And this other group is the people that are really projecting their inner insecurities or projecting their inner problems onto money, onto personal finance. They hoard stuff, or they're compulsive about spending, or, they're very emotional about money. And this is really projecting inner challenges, inner issues onto money as a medium. And this is really difficult, and there's a lack of discussion in this medium. We're trying really hard to bring on people to talk about things in this space. But yeah, most people that are in personal finance, they just see everything as numbers and spreadsheets and budgeting, and they don't recognize there's a human element, right? So for a lot of the audience that are struggling at this part, it's a lot more about the psyche, a lot more about the psychology, and this is challenging. So even if they know all these, cognitively they know you gotta save, you gotta invest, why, all sorts of reasons, right? And everybody talks about these reasons, but even as you're cognitively aware, you don't do it because there's so many other emotional level baggages or challenges in the inner world that doesn't allow them to practice what they cognitively understand now. So I think this is a big problem. And then, of course, there's a third bunch of people which are systemically disadvantaged. If we're born into a world where it's like digital first, right? These days, everything is digital. And if you understand technology, hey, you're in a good position within the system. But there are some people that are priced out of the system because they came from an era that is not so digital and times have changed. They don't move up. Can we really blame them for not keeping up with times, or is there a part of the society that needs to recognize this? Or is another big bunch of people that are challenged in this field are your gig workers? So in Singapore, I'm sure your audience are everywhere, but in Singapore, it's like a lot of people, they have a job and they contribute to this thing called CPF. And then that is like your savings scheme run by the government, and that is the interim before you get your public housing, public healthcare, everything. But the gig workers don't get contribution to that CPF pool. So when you don't have CPF, you don't get to buy public housing, you don't get to use public healthcare. Not that you don't get to use it, but you got to pay out-of-pocket cash. So it becomes a systemical disadvantage for a lot of these guys. And of course, the LGBT guys, they don't get to buy their house, even if they're married or even if they're like happily attached. So they only get it when they're under the single scheme at 35. So then they get disadvantaged by the system also, right? Because the heterosexual couples can get a house earlier, they can get equity in the market. So you get the idea, right? Across the board, there are diversity in terms of all sorts of challenges. And it's not just about, people, there's so much information out there, why aren't people using it and doing it? Because some people are just challenged by the system. Some people have inner world challenges that they're just projecting onto money, and some people just need time to learn. It's not as simple, and over the year of podcasting, that's kind of what I've realized. That's that.
So you don't have a deep financial background from your story that you've told previously. How did you get into podcasting about finance in the first place?
Good question. I think I was just really irritated by your YouTube guys. They're disturbing my YouTube videos, they're disturbing my Facebook socials, and I don't like it when people pry on other people's fears, because that's what they're trying to do half the time. I'm not against courses. We do partner with people that sell courses, and we are very stringent about courses, but we understand the value of courses, right? Because people bring things together, and it's a lot of work to create a good course. But a lot of these guys online, they're just like manipulating your fears and your insecurities. They enlarge it. They make you feel like it's everything, like money is going to solve all your problems. So to me, it was, should I use the word? It was more like a crusade. I just felt like, okay, I need to share my view and put it out there and see if it works for others. It is not so much about having some objective reality, like, okay, this is objectively the best way to do it. I don't think I really claim those stuff, even in the podcast. It was a lot about my opinions, how I see things, how I do it, and you can decide for yourself. So it's a lot about getting people to converse, talk about it, and getting conversations started. So that's kind of why I do it. It's really irritated with these guys.
So you have experienced a lot of what society would deem as failures just to get to where you are today. Big sigh, yes. What have been some of the biggest challenges that you've faced in the past?
Okay, I think it may sound a little trivial now, but one of the biggest challenges was dropping out of school, for sure. And I know some people will be like, all the successful people drop out of school? Nope, that's not the truth. The data doesn't show that, right? So just so happened that some of the more high-profile successes are dropouts. Does not mean that all dropouts succeed. The reality is, in our society in Singapore, because it is so structured, and if you drop out of the system, you essentially fall out of the system, right? And then you gotta work your way around proving your value. And that is very, very difficult for a lot of people that don't recognize the difficulty yet. If you drop out, you will. And that is some real hard shit because people don't understand why you do it. Honestly, I didn't even understand why I did it. I just kind of felt like I didn't want to do this and that's it. So I don't have the kind of clarity that I have today, or I believe I have today. And yeah, it's people like, personally, like my family really made it very difficult for me. It was like, so 2 years of national service, you have to go to the army, right, for Singaporeans. And then during the 2 years, I really kind of decided I didn't want to go to school. But then my parents would rally everyone, every family event. There will be this auntie, this grand uncle. Hey, why you don't want to go to school? I'm like, dude, shut up. It's like, enough. Nobody's really asking me about why I don't want to do it, but everybody's just kind of projecting their fears and their perspectives on me. So that was real hard because you feel alone, your friends don't get it, and yeah, it just feels super lonely. That is one part. And I think now it's a bit better because I kind of surround myself with people that understand me. And of course, over time, I understand myself. And over time, I've gotten some level of success in certain things that I do. So people don't judge me as much as that guy that doesn't do shit. So that's one part. And then I think this other huge failure, I think is pretty traumatizing, was I was part of an investment scam. I think back then I was still in national service, and you know, young and crazy, new to the world, you don't know much, and yeah, I just feel like, hey, maybe this bunch of people have the answers for me, right? I won't name names, but yeah, it was all razzle dazzle, very exciting kind of thing, and yeah, they made me feel like I should be part of them. So then I became part of them. For them at that point in time, they were using all sorts of ways to try to raise money for all sorts of like private investments kind of stuff. And it sounded cool, right? Like, hey, I'm like 18 and I could be part of a private investment thing. Now that I think about it, dude, who are you, right? But at a point in time, I didn't know, right? So I was part of it, and then I started recruiting my friends and recruiting people to put money with these guys, and turns out it was a shit show, right? So then that was real tough because you get death threats and people want to punch you. And every meeting thereafter, when I was trying to tell people that, okay, I realize it's a scam, I'm out of it, it felt like a torture. It's like as if you've ended that shit already. Like, I've ended my ties with these guys, but then the shit clearing process just started because there are all these other people that trusted me, and I had to talk to them and convince them or reconvince them or kind of admit that, you know, I failed. And it was painful, for like a better way to put it, because at the point in time, people don't really care as much. They just care about their own money. And I get it. I don't blame them. But it was tough because it's as if I wasn't lonely enough, right? And I lost most of my friends. My family didn't want to talk to me on top of the university shit. So it's like, from an Asian family's viewpoint, this guy has went rogue, you know. Like, he's a crazy guy. Stay away from him, right? So, and yeah, that was real bad. For like a better way to put it, I felt like dying because I felt like I didn't know what to do after that. And at least when I was in it, there was still the guys in there to feel like I was part of them. But now I'm out of them, and all these people that I was with, they felt like they didn't want to be with me anymore. So that was torturous. Yeah. Whew, so emotional.
But when that whole experience happened, there would have been a lot of emotions going through.
Yeah.
At what point afterwards did you look back and learn from what you experienced?
I think even to today I'm learning. But it's just little bit by little bit, right? So at first I kind of drowned into the abyss, right? And I was just trying to avoid people, and I gained so much weight, I lost my hair and all these kind of stuff. So then all those things just kind of compounded. So when you avoid people, that is like first sign of shit show, right? It's going to be worse because your mental just kind of spirals into this whole like, oh, the world hates me, you know, like the whole abyss. And that was real bad. But then there were a few friends, and I appreciate their presence back then and now. They were there, and they were just kind of like bringing me along, right? They didn't give me answers, or they didn't give me much help, but they were just there. Like, hey, you want to grab a coffee? Hey, you want to go to the gym? You know, that kind of stuff. So those guys were really vital, right? And they got me to inch step by step out of my own inner world and really get going with like more external things, right? It's just the act of bringing me out to the real world was very, now that I look at it, was very important, especially when someone is in that whole emotional implosion stage, right? And just being there and being their lifeline. It's challenging, it's not easy, yeah, because I was just very emotional half the time. Every little thing was like triggering to me. So I respect these guys that were there to kind of help me out of it. Yeah, I won't say I've like fully recovered. Sometimes I still feel like sleepless nights and I still think about it, or something happened and then it triggers a whole host of memories, and those things still haunt me, right? But that was an important part in terms of learning from how to get out of failure, which is really to ask for help, or at least be visible enough so that people can help you. Because a lot of times it's not that people don't want to help you, but you're not visible because you're stuck in your own shit show, right? In your own head. And so it's very difficult for others to know. And so I think just being out there and having people to kind of drag you along, that was important, one thing. Another thing would be really to be comfortable exploring things again, because a lot of people, they will jump from one failure to another failure, like immediately. It's like one breakup to another breakup, same idea. Huh? So if you do that, a lot of times you don't learn from your previous failures. You don't get the time to look inwards and kind of revisit what went wrong, what went right, why certain things happen, all those kind of stuff, right? So take the breather and go and explore and do things that you enjoy, or pick up a new skill, go to a new place. I definitely went through a lot of backpacking for that. So I went around, I took a backpack, I realized that I could live on $500 a month, and then that was like history, right? I was just traveling and traveling and traveling, and that really helped. Of course, I did work a little bit after that, so I had some money, and once I had the money, I decided that I would travel. And a few years on the road, and that really helped. But then after that, I feel like, oh, okay, maybe it's time to do something, right? So a whole chain of events. But if you really talk about revisiting this whole process and coming out of failure, I think one is to be visible, ask for help, recognize that you need the help, have a system to just kind of go along and keep exploring, and don't be in a rush to go to the next thing. I think that's kind of some points for me.
Mm. From your experience, do you think failure in general is too stigmatized and not pushed enough as a learning experience for people?
Oh my God, tell me about it. So it is so stigmatized that we don't talk about this in mainstream media. And so, okay, this whole season is in post-production now. I ran a whole season called our Entrepreneurship Show. We're getting entrepreneurs to come on to talk about their shit show, right? What happened to them? What is their down? What's their loneliness? How bad was it from their perspectives? Because the media doesn't talk about it, and I think we need to talk about it so that everybody understands it is normal, it's human to make mistakes, and how then do we come out of it, right? So I think we don't talk enough about it, and every time when we talk about it, we have this very toxic tinge to it. We make it sound like failure is like a rank, like some sort of mark that you should be proud of. But dude, no. In my view, I think failure is something that you should recognize and sit with and just kind of learn from it. And I personally don't think that it is something that one should really blindly be proud of. Like, I get it that we want to talk about failures. I think that's cool and that's good. But to just take failure as, yeah, it's like, no. This is too simplistic, and you don't grow, you don't learn, and I think that's not healthy. Yeah, that's my thoughts.
Yeah, I agree. I think there is a element of glamorizing failure, especially in startups.
Yes.
And so you don't think that's a healthy thing at all?
Yeah, I don't think that is healthy at all, because you simplify it, right? When you oversimplify it, when you glamorize something, you kind of oversimplify it. It's like when you look at a model, it's like, oh my gosh, she's so beautiful, and that's it. And you don't realize that she's human, and there's so many things involved, the inner world, and it's so much more complex. And when we glamorize something or someone, or in this case, failure, then that same effect takes hold, right? It becomes like, oh yeah, failure, that's it. But people don't sit down and understand, why did you fail? How do we be better? How do we cope with failure? How do we get over it? And all these things that we hope to achieve, like understanding failure, coping with it, getting over it, and coming out stronger, all these things take long processes of sitting in with failure and having these kind of conversations and talk about it and actually learn from it. Like, if I didn't sit with failure and go through all these processes, I cannot vividly tell you, okay, this is what happened, you need to find somebody to help you, you need to pick up some things, explore, don't be in a hurry. All these things are like secrets to how to get by with failure, or how to get over failure, right? But imagine I was just stuck in this whole like startup circuit of celebrating failure. I will go into the next thing without knowing why I failed in the first place. And when my battery runs out, or when the startup thing runs out on me, that ultimate big blow of failure is gonna be so crazy. Does it make sense?
It's quite refreshing to hear.
Yeah. To me, that is where it is, right? So we need to talk more about it. We need to have deeper discussions about it. In media these days, it's either we don't talk about it or we just glamorize it, right? Like what you said. So yeah.
So I noticed a hashtag that you use is living life to the fullest.
Yeah, cheesy young days.
Yeah, so
It's stuck around. It's stuck around, yeah.
And it's still very good. I think it's a good, not just as a hashtag, but it's a good motto to have. And obviously you've had some experiences that you've shared with us that were traumatic. So, even with that, how would you tell others to, keep living life to the fullest, despite having these negative experiences?
Oh, wow. So, yeah, living life to the fullest is something I used to talk about a lot. These days, I'm just going through with a lot of work. But I'm still trying to live life. It's an endless process, right? An endless process of trying to figure where does work sit in life and what does life entails. All those kind of stuff are really long and grueling. But how I see it is, firstly, I've established one thing, that there is no right or wrong. Okay, so that's my perspective, right? There's no right or wrong. Everything is a construct. If you sit with a bunch of people that believe that apples are red, then apples are red. If you sit with a bunch of people that believe apples are green, then yeah, there are some apples that are green. Everything is a construct, in my view, and everything is progressing and changing, and that's kind of how I embrace things. So that gave me a lot of comfort to explore, to not feel like I'm doing something wrong, or to not feel like I'm doing something like, is this a right thing to do? Because I think the right or wrong thing really ties a lot of people down, and in that sense, when you're tied down by it, you don't really live to the fullest, in my view. When you can go out and explore and feel like you're learning, it doesn't mean that ultimately whatever you've tried will be a part of your life forever. You may realize that, okay, this thing, maybe I just like it. For a period of time during COVID, I picked up cycling, and I thought cycling was the thing, man. But then after a while, I realized, okay, maybe I just like to cycle, that's it. It's not my thing. Right? But if I didn't try it, then I would have never known whether it's my thing, right? So don't be too hard up on whether something is right for you or not good for you. Just go out and do what you need to do, try it, and give yourself some grace. And that's kind of where I see living life to the fullest. It's not about doing the most outrageous things out there or doing things that people cannot do, but it's really about trying and living a life that at the end of the day you can look back and say, okay, I tried many things and this is the life I wanted, or this is the life I ultimately chose. So I think that's kind of where a lot of people lack, which is to just go out there and pick up data points and try and ultimately make a decision that, okay, this is my life and I'm at peace with it. That's kind of what I mean by living life to the fullest now. Yes, went through many iterations, but this is the now, yes. Back then it would have been, hey, just go and do the craziest model shit out there, but times have changed, right? So yeah, over time this is where I stand now and what I mean by living life to the fullest. Go there and try, figure something and find the life you can live. Yeah.
Perfect.